The academic year ends in Gabon and the results are more than satisfactory. 72% for the advanced level exam compared to 61% last year. 53% for the general certificate of secondary education exam, whereas 57% and 80% were recorded for the certificate of elementary education examination compared to 68% last year. Zimbabwe has been mired for 2 decades in a catastrophic and hitherto hopeless economic and financial crisis that has not spared its public health care system. Even in state hospitals, many patients are forced to pay for their treatments from their own pocket. In West Africa, 100,000 hectares of forest disappear every year in Mali. The announcement was made by the authorities of the country, which since 1995 has instituted a national annual reforestation campaign to combat deforestation and the effects of climate change. That's all for our top stories today. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. In Gabon, the academic year ends with results considered more than satisfactory. These results improve the image of the Gabonese education system, which has long suffered from several dysfunctions resulting in failures. A questioning by the Gabonese head of state, which fortunately did not fall into deaf ears. Results punctuating the 2018-2019 academic year in the country are encouraging indicators within the education sector. Beyond a simple motion, the task force was the place of reflection that has helped to drive a new dynamic in the sector, a sector that has clearly been back on track. At the end of this meeting in September 2018, it was all about getting down to work and reversing the trend. A successful bet. Of 41,838 candidates for the certificate of primary studies, 38,650 were successful, an increase in the success rate to 80%. Of 41,838 candidates for the certificate of primary studies, 33,650 were successful, an increase in the success rate to 80.43% for the undergrad certificate. Out of 32,937 candidates, 17,472 passed, 53.05% of success. The success rate of the A-level exam is estimated at 72.11%. Results that show a rise in the level of learners and at the same time adequate teaching methods to reinforce mastery of teaching. If Gabon has taken a big step, it remains that the authorities must continue the efforts made especially in the construction of specialized institutions in professional and technical sectors, as desired by the President of the Republic, who wants to make education in Gabon a reference in the sub-region. Underpaid and under-equipped doctors in Zimbabwe have hung up their stethoscopes several times in recent months, including demanding decent salaries in hard currency. As for patients, they are forced, even in state hospitals, to pay for their own treatment.
So we find that that combination of low TB prevalence and a rock that is low in silica content, and the fact that there's no overcrowding, means our TB figures are almost negligible compared to the national average. You find that we get 1, 2, or up to 3 cases in a period of 12 months.
In the middle of this ordinary of precarity, the Rutsanana Polyclinic is an exception, thanks to support from the International Union Against Tuberculosis and Respiratory Diseases.
If one is HIV, if one is on TB treatment, and if he also has TB diabetes, and the diabetes is well controlled, chances of him recovering very well are very high.
In a country where 90% of the population is unemployed, few can afford it. Originally intended for residents of the Glen Nora neighborhood alone, the facility now accommodates patients who live up to 25 kilometers away and covers a total population of over 80,000 people. The statistics show that Mali is desert on 2/3 of its area. The country faces environmental changes due to climate disturbances and human actions, resulting in an increase in temperatures and extreme weather events such as floods, high winds, land erosion, and loss of biodiversity. Today, Mali loses more than 100,000 hectares of forest every year because of these plagues. This is why, of the 32 million hectares of forest recorded in Mali in 2002, only about 17 million hectares remain. The 25th edition of the annual National Reforestation Campaign instituted by the Malian government through the ministry in charge of the environment was held this year around the theme, "The tree is the seal of life on earth. Let us plant it for the happiness of the future generation." This reforestation campaign is based on a series of activities, including raising awareness among the population about the importance of preserving biological diversity, the production of more than 20 million plants of all species, the establishment of 86,250 cuttings, to mention a few. Ukrainians have given free hand to their new president Volodymyr Zelensky, his new party. His party alone winning an absolute majority in parliament in Sunday's anticipated legislative elections, according to Ukrainian media projections. 3 months after the triumphant election of this ex-comedian novice in politics on the promise of breaking the system, his party won an unprecedented score, giving him free hands to form a new government and reform the country facing an armed conflict with the pro-Western party Servant of the People, named after the television series in which Zelensky plays the role of a president, obtained 42.4% of the votes, according to the result published by the Electoral Commission, with nearly half of the ballot counted. According to the projections by several Ukrainian media, this national score, combined with local elections, allows him to obtain at least 226 seats out of 450 in the unicameral parliament. This would be the first time that a party would obtain such a majority in the legislative elections since the independence of this former Soviet republic. 4 other parties crossed the threshold of 5% of the votes required to enter parliament. These are the pro-Russian opposition platform with 12.8%, followed by the 3 pro-Western parties, European Solidarity or former President Petro Poroshenko, 8.7%, Homeland or former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, 8%, and the Golos Party Voice, founded in May by Ukrainian rock star Vyatoslav Vakachuk, 6.4%. Out of a total of 450 parliamentary seats, 26 will not be filed in Crimea, the Ukrainian peninsula annexed in 2014 by Russia, and in the separatist territories. Africa and space have a long history. Indeed, from a technological point of view, the phone call in August 1963 between American President John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Nigerian Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa has a historic aspect. This is the first satellite conversation in history. Alongside Egypt and South Africa, Nigeria is one of the Africa's heavyweights in space studies. More than 50 years after this highly symbolic phone call, he announced in 2016 wanting to send by 2030 a man into space. In 2013, flood-stricken South Africa is using its knowledge to handle the crisis. The South African National Space Agency provides important data to the authorities. South Africa has been chosen to host one of the 2 sites on which the Square Kilometre Array, the world's largest radio telescope developed to probe the confines of space, will be developed. In Kenya, satellites are used in 2013 to spot water during severe droughts. In Nigeria, it is in the context of the fight against terrorism that satellite images are used to track down Boko Haram jihadists. In 2017, Ghana launched a satellite to monitor the coastline. A second project will be underway to control the illegal exploitation of minerals or deforestation in the country. And in January 2019, African Union endorsed the creation of an African Space Agency, sending a clear message to the rest of the world that Africa is also looking to the stars and arming itself for the conquest of space. From a distance, the continent is quick to clash up. Of the 31 African satellites launched since 1998, 40% have been launched in the last 3 years. South Africa is like the continent's heavyweight. A little more than 2 weeks after the elimination of his team in the round of 16 of the 2019 African Cup of Nations against Benin, Hervé Renard confirmed his departure within a long statement, believing that it was time for him to close this chapter of his life, not without evoking a certain emotion and sadness. Hervé Renard, who won 2 African Cups of Nations with Zambia and then Cote d'Ivoire, said that this inevitable decision had been made well before the 2019 African Cup of Nations. If the decision had been taken for some time earlier, however, there is every reason to believe that the surprise elimination of Morocco, which was one of the favorites, weighed on the balance. For Hervé Renard, the Lions had greater hope for this AFCON 2019. For several days now, rumors have been going down well that the French coach had left. The Moroccan Football Federation even had to deny having dismissed the Frenchman, explaining that its president Fouzi Lekja and Hervé Renard met to draw up an initial assessment of this 2019 AFCON, and that a decision on the future of the coach would be taken shortly. Hervé Renard therefore definitely made his choice and also specified that Fouzi Lekja had been informed that he had committed himself contractually to comply with this decision. The academic year ends in Gabon and the results are more than satisfactory. 72% for the advanced level exam compared to 61% last year. 53% for the general certificate of secondary education exam, whereas 57% and 80% were recorded for the certificate of elementary education examination compared to 68% last year. Zimbabwe has been mired for 2 decades in a catastrophic and hitherto hopeless economic and financial crisis that has not spared its public health care system. Even in state hospitals, many patients are forced to pay for their treatments from their own pocket. In West Africa, 100,000 hectares of forest disappear every year in Mali. The announcement was made by the authorities of the country, which since 1995 has instituted a national annual reforestation campaign to combat deforestation and the effects of climate change. That's the end of our newscast of the day, but keep watching Gabon 24 for further news.